Hello, and welcome to The Role of APIs in End-to-End Service Delivery, created in partnership with MEF. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the sponsors of ITW 2021 for supporting this year's event. If you are joining the session in person, please switch your phone to silent out of courtesy to the speakers and other audience members. If you would like to ask any questions to the speakers throughout the session, you can do so using the live chat function on the Swapcard app or on the desktop version. Now, without further ado, I would like to hand over to our session moderator, Sam Evans, who will introduce the panelists.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Sophia, and good morning, everybody in the USA, and good afternoon, I guess, if you're anywhere in Europe, and good evening to those in Asia. Pleasure to have you with us today for what I think is going to be a fascinating discussion about the role of APIs in delivering complex services. I'm very pleased today to have four real leaders of this part of the industry to join me. We've got John Nolan from AT&T, Devesh Gupta from PCCW Global, Daniele Mancuso from Sparkle, and Pascal Menendez from the MEF. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. John, I'm going to start with you in the room, looking like it's an AT&T branded mask, at least the branded blue mask. Very good. So, look, the world is getting more complex, right? The provision of more complex services, more complex networking relationships. Why are these themes around automation, capacity on demand becoming so critical as you're looking to provide services for your customers?
Great question. Well, first of all, thanks and welcome everybody attending here in the room, as well as everyone virtually online. Thanks for joining us today. To your point, Sam, I don't think we as an industry have done a good job keeping up with our customer expectations. The world around us is moving very fast. Other services they consume are innovating. And when it comes to establishing global networks for our clientele, I don't think we've kept up with their expectations. So there's work to be done here. And I'm sure we'll touch on a variety of the reasons why it makes sense. But I do think it's a urgent problem that we need to rally around.
And why have we not kept up with those expectations? Well, why is it that maybe now, since you're saying the industry is playing catch up, why do you think we've got here and we're positioning this discussion as it's a problem that we're needing to solve, as opposed to being, just the next wave and the next wave of innovation?
I think we can be our own worst enemy in that if we get complacent in terms of processes that work today, that are good enough, we're able to provision services. We do so in a manner of different ways with carriers all around the globe. Here in the US, we've used access service requests for years. We modified that to fit for Ethernet, but we've really not kept up with the pace of change or the technological innovation that exists in terms of how we can create a more effortless customer experience for our end users and reduce the friction between carriers when we're ordering and provisioning services.
Brilliant. Thank you, John. And let me take that point on reducing friction, Daniele, to yourself. To what extent is this really about carriers fixing the plumbing? And this being, look, we're playing catch up. It's about efficiency of just doing what we should be doing. Or is this really about creating a foundation on which the industry can create new value? And this is about value creation. Where would you put the balance there?
Are you asking me?
Well, I think, Sam, that we are exactly in the middle. The point is, first of all, for the existing services, I fully agree with what John said. We are not keeping the pace. Our enterprise customers are feeling the pressure of the new consumer experience. In the consumer world, everything today is here, now, immediate. And this is basically reflecting on the enterprise part and ultimately to the enterprise looking for connectivity on demand looking for connectivity as a service, and looking for a new complex set of services that are not just connectivity. So on one side, we need to start making efficiency, making a lot of homeworks in order to interact between ourselves, sorry, in an automated fashion. On the other end, we are at the verge of a real revolution in the enterprise digital transformation world. And this will see service providers at the center of a universe where enterprises will interact between themselves, will interact with other kind of actors in order to create a complex supply chain of services. So it's not just about connectivity. And there it's the creation of new revenue streams.
Brilliant. Thank you, Daniele. Devesh, I could see you nodding as Daniele was speaking. Do you share that perspective?
Yes, absolutely. I can relate back to my experience of working for a telecom service provider back in 2000 or late 1990s, where we used to connect IBM mainframes kept at the enterprise headquarters to the remote depots and offices, sales offices using event links. These links were provisioned manually, they were ordered manually, they were fixed term, fixed bandwidth contracts. So you look at that and you look at the time period we are in today, you have the same enterprise applications which are hosted on cloud and they're available on subscription, on demand basis. So customers are, I think, not wrong in expecting that same level of on demand experience when it comes to network services. And so that's where the gap is. We need to kind of bridge that gap and bring network services on par of what cloud computing has to offer today in terms of applications on demand. And there is a lot of discussion. Probably we could touch upon that in various open forums that we're working on bridging that gap, but the gap is still there. Yes.
Great, thank you. And then, so Pascal, how does MEF fit into this? We're going to get into the APIs and the how, but have you seen that there's been a real push from the carrier community, the ICT service provider community, to work together to solve this? Or have you had to put MEF in the middle, bring parties together and say, look, guys, there's a gap, right? We have to fix this.
Thank you, Sam. No, actually, I think the community has been really incredible, the service provider community. They really have understood the need to be very, very fast and agile and have that cloud-like experience. And they are definitely have stepped up. As you know, most of the gentlemen on this panel have been part of that. And we're seeing a huge, huge adoption of the APIs that we've come up in MEF. We call them Sonata. And it's exactly what Devesh and John and what Daniele talked about is the ability to how do you have these providers in a federation-like model where they can just communicate at almost cloud-like speeds and yet turn up services on demand. And that's really critical. And the service provider community has been really, really well in receiving that and understanding that is kind of where everybody has to go because we're all used to the cloud-like experience now. So.
And you said everybody understands that's where we need to go. To what extent are you seeing in MEF that this is the carrot of new value or the stick of the fear of being left behind? Daniele said he's right in the middle. Where are you seeing, if you give that perspective across the community between the carrot and the stick?
Sorry, Sam, I'm having a problem hearing. I don't think there's a monitor on stage. Could you just repeat that question?
So I was saying, to what extent, because you've got the view across the industry, between the carrot of new value and the stick of being left behind, where is the industry as a whole in embracing, or the rationale for embracing automation and what we call the frictionless experience?
Well, I think it's just the norm. I mean, we have as I think Devesh or Daniele talked about, you have to have it's going to be an ecosystem of partners that are going to deliver on the solution. It's not, single provider is going to have every part of the equation on the solution for whether that be. Now, today we're talking, underlay, connectivity services, edge compute's coming out. We have overlays, we have cybersecurity. I don't believe there'll be, I don't think it's very challenging to have, a single provider try to do all of it. So they have to rely on a set of ecosystem partners, and those partners have to be able to do that at real-time speed. So this is all critical that from the enterprise, they see it as a one-stop shop, but behind the scenes is many, many partners and ecosystems coming together and delivering that at real-time speeds, near real-time speeds. That's the critical aspect.
And can you talk a little bit about the work MEF is doing here? You've been centrally, you talked about the Sonata APIs. Can you just take a couple of minutes to talk us through the work that you're doing to bring to life or realize the frictionless experience, and just where are you on that journey as of today?
Yeah, thank you. So what we've done, and we spent over 5 years now, is basically realizing this East-West, we call it East-West Federation model, where providers can talk to each other in some machine-to-machine way. And we've been working on this area called Sonata APIs, and they're a set of APIs, and they do everything from a certain address. You can look up any address in your partner ecosystem, ask for that address, look what services are capable of, and then basically get a price quote, order it. So these are all the kind of commercial transactions that have to happen. And then finally, after you order it, then all the operational aspects have to happen, performance management, fault management, change control, service changes, and service activation testing, trouble ticketing, then finally, billing, invoicing, settlement. These all are the things that have to be fully automated end to end. And that's really what MEF we've been doing for about 5 years, thanks to all our great service providers members, and the leadership here you see on this panel is being really extraordinary. And we have finally released our 7th version of this set of APIs. We call it the Billy release, and we're going to the 8th coming out shortly and in November. And we continue to innovate, and we're using an agile approach, and we continue to innovate. And the goal is not only to make the two providers interconnect, or many providers interconnect in a common API language, but then reuse all of that API assets and then focus it towards the enterprise too, because many enterprises are on the automation journey too. Multinationals, they are putting automation systems in. They want to have APIs. They don't want to have collections of portals to go to. Their automation systems want to be connected with APIs. So we've reused all the assets. We're reused all the assets for Sonata, and we're releasing that all out in what we call Cantata, which is facing the enterprise. So from the enterprise right to the whole ecosystem, the whole food chain is, trying to be fully automated that deliver, services in real time. Not just connectivity. It could be at cloud compute. It could be, you name it. Cybersecurity services, SASE, whatever needs to be done, security functions and so on. So hope that answered that question.
Yeah, it does. And let me ask one more question before I'm going to come on to ask John a few questions. But traditionally, this industry is very good, Pascal, at speaking, carrier to carrier, right? You talked about facing the enterprises, and I'm going to ask John in a minute about the importance of standardization. So, John, get ready for that theme. But first, Pascal, to what extent are you as an industry here engaging the enterprises, engaging the cloud providers, so that this is a solution that is not just, carriers to carrier, but it's going to get buy-in from the enterprises who are taking increasing control over their connectivity fabric. It's going to get buy-in from the GCN community who are increasingly, needing to spin up connectivity on demand. So to what extent is MEF also working with these communities?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. So with the cloud providers, the hyperscalers, they're understanding that their go-to-market, the ability to go and deliver, this digital transformation and the network transformation underneath is the underpinning for digital transformation. They're going with many service providers into the market, and that's very much a known fact. You're seeing that every day. You're seeing articles come out with service providers and hyperscalers working together. And edge compute is one example you're seeing very commonly going in. And so we are seeing that hyperscalers are realizing there has to be an automation between all their infrastructure as a service, and their platform as a service, and all of the things they're doing in analytics and AI and so on. And how do you make that connection part of the ecosystem in an automation way? So we do have, on our board, we have Microsoft Azure, Sean Hackle. And he's really helping us a lot with that direction. And it's really, really helpful. And then on the enterprise side, we are seeing demand. We are seeing these multinationals are saying, I want automation. And so we're not quite there yet with the enterprise because we spend a lot of time in the inter-provider, but we're starting to now see and realize what are the use cases the enterprises want. And I can't name some names, but some of the large enterprises have said, I'm dealing with 40 providers, I want APIs. Or some are saying, I'm automating, I just want APIs. So we're starting to embark on that, and maybe John, Devesh, or Daniele can maybe expand on that. So.
Yeah, that would be great. Let me come to John, you next, to keep it in the room, and then we'll come over to Devesh and Daniele. Maybe if you could pick up first, John, on some of the use cases that you're seeing are getting particular traction here with the enterprise and GCN communities, and then I want to come on and talk to you about standardization. But let's start with use cases. What's getting traction with your customers?
So for me, my organization, and let me jump in because Pascal said it, if we could turn up the volume when Sam asks the questions a little bit, we're having a hard time hearing him, I'd appreciate that. So as far as the use cases go, our customers are demanding. They don't realize what goes into providing the services. And so the processes that have been established over decades to interface with carriers, the APIs that we're consuming now with the partners we've turned up with allow us to check service availability, get up-to-date pricing, place orders, get order status, the ability to eventually open trouble tickets and get trouble ticketing status, and get that information in real time. So it allows us to provision a lot faster for our customers, which is critical for them. The information flow is a lot easier, and it allows us to recognize revenue faster. So the journey that we're on here is one that I think is fundamental to changing how we do business with each other. And at some point, if we're not all there, it'll become a competitive disadvantage if you're not using these APIs.
And that's actually where I wanted to go next. Competition versus standardization. To what extent do you see this as an opportunity for a subset of carriers to really differentiate in terms of what you can deliver to your customers? You use this as a way to win enterprise share, win GCN share, as opposed to this being something that you believe every carrier should adopt because it needs to just be an industry standard. What's your position on that, John?
So in the US, where we own the network, we offer network services on demand. And so this is the first step in a journey towards being able to, through the partner ecosystem and the people that have deployed these APIs, provide a better customer experience and ultimately meet our end users' expectations around effortless customer experience and that network on demand experience they enjoy in the US anywhere they have connectivity needs that are provided by us.
So let me take that same question, Devesh, to yourself, right? Competition versus standardization. So we've taken John's view there. Now you've obviously got in PCCW Global, you've got Console Connect.
Yeah.
To what extent do you see
sorry, you were saying something. Yeah, Sam. So let me just start with the very basics of what we have today on offer from Console Connect umbrella under the PCCW Global brand. And I can connect that with how we need, ecosystems of service providers working together to be able to provide end-to-end connectivity, right? So under the Console Connect brand, we operate a software-defined fabric, and we have a portal from where the customer can come in and order services. The first thing they do is they come and order a port. Ordering a port would make them part of the Console Connect community. What they do is they can look at all of the other available ports on our network. We have in excess of 400 data centers in 50 countries worldwide, where a customer can come in and connect to another port within their enterprise. Now that connectivity is provisioned on demand. They could also connect to a partner port. In that case, request is sent, and if the request is accepted by the partner, again, the connectivity is provided on demand. But these examples are for fully on-net provisioning. So you take this a step further. Let's say customers are requiring connections into a cloud, let's say Azure cloud or a Google cloud. We allow the users to also open a port and then connect to a cloud domain. So, for example, if they're on ramping in Asia, they can off ramp into a cloud domain Google within Asia. So it could be Hong Kong, Singapore, or whatever they choose, Tokyo, Sydney. Now, this connectivity is being provided based on an API interconnect with a cloud partner. So the entire end-to-end experience that a customer gets is coming to an portal and just ordering connectivity. They might be hosting an application to the cloud, and they get that end-to-end visibility. It's only possible because we have an interconnection and we have a tightly connected API with a downstream provider, in this case, a cloud operator. Now, if you take that in the context of a connectivity provider, no single connectivity provider would have 100% geographical coverage, right? So if you're extending your reach beyond your own footprint, you would invariably need to interconnect with other partners. And to me, I think touching to your question about competition against standardization, I think everyone in this industry is big. We have been traditionally a very cooperative industry within the telecom operators and wholesale in particular. I think the adoption has to be driven through standardization of APIs. That's how it will drive. If you have monolithic APIs or proprietary APIs, the onboarding process becomes so slow that it doesn't really scale well.
Understood. And it seems still, Devesh, that there is probably a subset of carriers that really get this. I count yourselves in this, those that are working with Pascal and the MEF team. Why do you think there are not more carriers at this stage knocking down the door of MEF saying, we need access to these APIs? This just makes sense in the industry.
Yes. Yeah, very good question. Okay, I can address that, and probably I think Daniel, Pascal, and John can also add to this. So we've been under MEF. We have been working a lot. I think Pascal just mentioned before that all of these underlying API standards have been in the works for past 2 or 3 years, I would say. But I think now is the time we have this underlying standard that have been already past the final stage of letter ballot, so they are published standards. The APIs are matured enough and they are ready for adoption. Recently MEF did a survey where we found out from member carriers that what is the requirement, what is the need in order for them to adopt these standards at a faster pace. And one of the requirements that came up was for an onboarding and interop platform, which is like a test bed or a sandbox that can be hosted in a carrier neutral place. And newer or regional carriers, service providers can come and develop their APIs against the published standard. That facility or that service wasn't available up until now, but MEF is going to offer that in October this year. So there are a lot of initiatives that are being taken in the MEF domain, which would address this issue which you just raised. That how do you expand the adoption of these APIs to the entire industry?
Brilliant. Thank you, Devesh. And let me come to you, Daniele, a bit of your perspective on what's needed to accelerate adoption from the carrier community, but also what are the barriers that you see that the industry still needs to overcome on this journey towards, I'll go back to sort of the tagline here, end-to-end frictionless commerce?
Yeah. Well, Sam, that's a great question. And, it's really part of the job that we do day by day with Devesh, Pascal, and the other colleagues on the weekly calls that we have on MEF. Many people working for service providers are still struggling to build a reasonable business case. They sometimes seek always the return in terms of new revenue streams. Correct, of course. It's the right approach whenever you need to face a development. If I may ask the technicians to lower a bit the volume in the room because I have a big return. There is another side of the medal that you need to analyze as well, which is the retention benefits. once the number of carriers and service providers adopting Sonata is increasing, once the ecosystem is being built, once the experience of working with this new way is spread around the enterprise customers, there is no way back. And I give you an example, taking and building up on what John was saying before. In the US, there is quite standardized the network on demand. So every enterprise there is looking for this way of working, and all carriers there are offering enterprise connectivity on demand, and they are interacting with other partners via Sonata API. What if an enterprise customer needs to terminate a connection in Italy? This carrier will, this enterprise will pretend from AT&T the same level of experience. They will not accept that for 2 or 3 branch offices, they will not be able to get that. So on the selection process, AT&T because they need to guarantee to their customer this level of experience. Be a trigger moment on which carriers that did not implement Sonata yet will be cut out of the market because there will be a critical mass of carriers and enterprise that are used to work in that way. So on my colleagues that are still struggling with the business case, I would say, please check it the other way around and think about how much revenue you can lose if you don't do it. That's, I think, a perspective to be kept into consideration. Please go ahead.
No, thank you, Danny. I think that's very important. And the business case, like anything in this industry for a new innovation, is challenging. And maybe, John, let me come back to you. How are you looking at this in terms of really, I mean, and I know you've personally been driving a lot of force of this through AT&T and through the industry. How do you make the argument for adoption of these APIs and for the internal investment that companies need to make to go on the journey? What's your pitch, if you will?
Sure. Well, let me first hit something that you said. Why aren't people moving faster? And I want to address that because I think they are. Yeah. In all journeys, you have a crawl, a walk, and a run phase. And we launched a couple of years ago at the end of 2019 with Colt, who was our first partner. We're enjoying faster turnups now, fewer emails and phone calls back and forth, which lowers your internal cost if you're providing the service. ENPS, customer satisfaction goes up, faster revenue recognition. And so I think we are now at a brisk walk phase of this journey. We are talking to everyone about it, and everyone has been very interested. To Daniele's point, sometimes money's tight when it comes to where you prioritize different projects, but I think that this has a good payback on customer satisfaction, reduced manual steps involved in the provisioning and the exchange of data associated with that, as well as faster revenue recognition. And the final point that he made, I think, is a good one that says we will reach a tipping point as an ecosystem where if you're not participating in this, it's a competitive disadvantage, meaning you might have the best price and I still might choose not to buy from you if you're making it harder for me to do business with you.
And if you were to look forward, John, into a crystal ball, when do you see that tipping point coming? Is it 2022? Are we still 3-4 years away? When do you think we will reach that?
So Devesh made a great point. My team that's working on this is absolutely overwhelmed with the amount of interest and the people that they're talking to. So when MEF launches that test bed sandbox later this year, I think that will help speed up the journey. I'm very pleased with the progress to date. The number of carriers that we'll have on by the end of this year. I think 22 will be a big year. And by the end of 23, I'd like to see, at least outside of the United States, 70% or more of our order volumes running over this platform.
Okay, fantastic. And Pascal, let me come to you. We've heard the sort of the case from the carriers around the table of why this makes sense and the work that they do to promote it. What is MEF doing to really advocate adoption of these APIs, engagement with this program of work?
Well, thanks. So we are launching a big marketing campaign here in September 15th that will talk about what the value, benefits, and why this is so important in the industry, number one. Number two, as you heard, we're doing this, launching October 1 of this this onboard interrupt test platform, interrupt test platform and onboarding. We're also now launching, we will be launching soon, and this is not announced on the 15th, but I'm giving you a preview, kind of a marketplace where carriers can go and see what vendors support, the Sonata APIs, what integrators are available to help with the APIs if you need them, and basically, what are the aggregators today that are using those APIs. So that's one. The second one we're also looking at is what we call a buyers group, showing that for all the sellers to say, where's the demand? You're all the buyers, that are looking to buy from you, the seller, in buy-sell trade, that, there's a lot of buyers lining up for this. And so we also did a poll. We have an in-house analyst that we polled 30 of our member service providers, and 27 to 28, I can't remember the exact number, said that, they're already implemented Sonata, they're implementing Sonata, or they will implement Sonata by, 2022. So this is really happening. It's not like it's going to happen, this is pie in the sky. This is really happening. And our assets we put together are massive. We've not only taken and put APIs, we've put developer guides, we've got support for answering questions. We have the interrupt test platform we talked about. We have certification coming out in October also. We have also the ability of building out what you call these products. Carry Ethernet today. We're doing internet access now because we see the need for internet access for SD-WAN scenarios. And we'll see more and more of this idea that this east-west automation goes beyond connectivity, as I talked about, to, buying and selling edge compute when that comes on market everywhere. So it's not just about connectivity, that's very critical. And by the way, the rubber meets the road in connectivity. You have to be able to tie in all parts of the globe, with high-speed connections from accesses to high-speed transports. And that's the basis for digital transformation. Because from there, you add in all these overlays and all these digital services and IoT and AI/ML and all those things are all needed because a network fundamentally has to support it, and it has to be end-to-end. And many people think, I can do that through the internet, and that's the answer is no, that's not true. The internet's good for an access loop to some edge POP, and you can use SD-WAN on top of that internet access loop, but the reality is edge-to-edge computing will be over very high-speed managed networks with a lot of cybersecurity built into it and all these analytics and so on. So I think the long story, the short answer to all of this is MEF has invested tremendous energy. And Devesh, I think you said 2 or 3 years. It's 5 years. I came in as a CTO 2015. I remember 2017 we started this journey. And it's been a tremendous journey, and I've seen the work of all our members and how hard they've worked to put this together. And when you actually see all the assets and how we've done this and how to bring this all together, we're seeing lots and lots of interest, a lot of adoption, and we're really solving some fundamental use cases I think the industry is really needed and needing right now for the digital economy. So I hope I answered that.
Brilliant. Thank you, Pascal. I'm going to come to yourself, Devesh, because Pascal picked up on a few interesting ideas of what comes next, right? Edge and so forth. And essentially this on-demand managed network services. Can you look into the future and go, okay, well, we get connectivity right? That's step one. Yes or yes, we have to do that. What comes next? What layers on top of this so that I'm going to go back to Daniele being sat right in the middle, that this swings us over to being, this is value creation now that we're able to generate through having these APIs?
Well, I think I can answer that question in several ways, but maybe I touch upon the two dimensions that we have, which actually cover most of what you're asking. So one dimension is the business process. Okay, so you're looking at these APIs cover from starting from an address validation to code to order, trouble ticketing and billing. So there again, I mean, we have certain part of these processes which are not fully ripe. So we have the code to order part connected, which is what we're talking of, and we're offering as the Billy release, right? The billing part's still left out, and that's a critical one. That's where the revenue comes in. So if you look at these APIs, which will be used by most of the wholesale service providers, the contract terms would go down and the volume of transactions would go up. So what happens there, if you have a large number of transactions happening in a month or a year, uh, obviously you would need to have automation on the billing side. So that's one key area, I think, in terms of where we are headed with these APIs, in terms of the business functionality only. And then the second dimension is adding more products and adding more suppliers in this ecosystem to be able to extend end-to-end services even beyond the connectivity. So currently we are looking at carrier Ethernet, which is in effect a very big one, because I think a majority of the carrier service providers, they're running private networks on Ethernet layer 2, even layer 3. So those are the two by far the prominent services that customers and service providers and enterprises are asking for us, and that's where we're headed at MEF as well, touching on the carrier Ethernet and then the internet access. But then you have layer 1 optical, you have 3G, 5G services, you have IoT, you have SD-WAN. All of these are roadmaps for the future. There is a good amount of work already being done, but we're not as ripe as the ones that we already pushed ahead, like with carrier Ethernet and internet access. So I would say that those are probably the go-to areas in the next couple of years.
Okay, thank you. Daniele, would you agree? Is it about carrier Ethernet and internet access in the next couple of years, or are there other services and capabilities that need to be built?
Well, I tend to agree with Divesh about the need of automate billing, because we are going always to a transactional world. I would say that when we will really see that we have achieved the first 50% and we want really to create value, then it's coming other kind of issues. I mean, we are going to a world where the human interaction with those machines will be always less and less. We are going towards a world where vehicles moving on the streets will be assigned a digital identity and will be able to purchase services. So first of all, if we automate billing, it means that all actors that needs to be invoiced and that are going to invoice needs to have a digital trusted identity within this business automation network that we are going to build. And there it's coming part of the work that MEF is doing, but also part of the work that other standard organizations are doing. And you know, Sam, because we are also discussing this within CBAN. We are going towards a world where those digital entities will be able to order at any moment in time different kind of services depending on their state, depending on their location. A vehicle that is leaving a city and is entering another metropolitan city may need to get access to the traffic system of that specific city, and therefore will require a specific connection to that data center or to an edge computer. So the value creation is going to be there. Therefore, it's clear that carrier Ethernet and internet access is going to be, for the next couple of years, our source of revenues. But let's expect to see identity, to see cars that are connecting through SASE to a data center that is remote or somewhere else. Containers, all the IoT world is going to evolve there.
Great, thank you, Daniel. You mentioned briefly the C-band.
Yeah.
And obviously Sparkle is involved in C-band, and so is PCCW Global. To what extent is distributed ledger technology going to be relevant here? And how does the work of CBAN intersect with this standardizing APIs, end-to-end frictionless experience?
Well, I think CBAN is working in the right direction to define what is the reference architecture that shall be used for those business automation networks, and to define what are the core services that the upper layers, the business logic, will have to use. There are, of course, several applications, but I think that both MEF and CBAN are working in the right direction, and identity is probably the first core service that will need distributed ledger technology. Wherever trust is needed, I believe blockchain is a valuable answer. And on this, MEF is going to have a great achievement, because there is the MEF work number 114 that is ready to become a standard. Hopefully, the last ballot will proceed, and this will basically fix MEF or established concepts each other through distributed ledger technology on a number of contractual items. And I believe the work of MEF with 114 and the work of CBAN with the definition of the draft reference architecture and of the core service is fundamental to enable those new revenue streams.
Brilliant. Thank you, Daniele. John, let me come back to you. Over the past couple of years, you've also been driving this project in the ITW Global Leaders Forum. Whilst MEF has been driving a lot of the technical work, you've also been building a community of carriers in GLF. How important is it that organizations like GLF really endorse this approach, right, to build the community? And what more could, for example, the GLF do to accelerate progress here, accelerate the building of the community?
I think GLF, the Global Leaders Forum, is a phenomenal platform that we use to get the message out. I truly believe that all good ideas get traction within a company when the people at the working level see the value and the benefit of those ideas, and it's combined with maybe a little bit of top-down focus or prioritization or funding. And so the GLF is a community where we can have those conversations, we can talk about problems that are common across the industry, and really bring all our collective companies' resources to bear to solve them. So it's been a phenomenal platform.
Brilliant. And I can see we're running low on time. Let me come back to each of you with the same question, very concise view on, in the next 12 months, if we were to be sitting here, hopefully not virtually, but physically in 12 months' time, where do we need to be? What's the one thing that we have to get right? Yes or yes or yes to continue the progress towards that end-to-end frictionless experience. Let me start with Devesh, then come to Daniele. I'll go to Pascal, and then John, I'll end with you, give you a chance to think about it. So Devesh, the one thing to get right, yes or yes or yes, concise answer.
Muted.
I think you're on mute, Devesh.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello. Sorry, I was saying, sorry to disappoint you. There's no one thing, but there's a multitude of things that we need to happen in order to get a total frictionless end-to-end deliveries for customers. So the telecom space is actually changing from a single carrier, a single provider providing a connectivity on a manual basis to an ecosystem of service providers, which constitute of cloud, connectivity, security, data center, all of them pitching together and providing an end-to-end service to the customers. Okay, so for that to happen, we need to have automation. We need to have integration with APIs between carrier partners within the telecom domain, within the connectivity partners, but also with cloud providers and with IPX providers, with the security providers, and that's what we require. I mean, I think the vision of the forum here is to be able to provide end-to-end services and applications on an on-demand manner. So,
Brilliant.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
the single one thing, if I could nail it down, probably would be, to have automated APIs. But I mean, you need a lot more than that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Daniele, what's your one thing?
Well, increase adoption through helping partners to understand the drivers of the business case, deliver the testing platform for the LSO Sonata, convince all partners that they need to get certified because certification is one of the most important items, and introduce the concept of the distributed ledger technologies to all the business transaction.
Brilliant. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Pascal, your one thing.
Well, I think it was all really well said between Devesh and Daniele. One of the things I think needs to happen is operators need to realize it's not just about making, and connecting the ecosystem together in an automated way. It's very important, but how to generate new revenues on top of that. So one of the things we're doing is introducing a marketplace where any provider can come up with their own product definition. It doesn't matter what it is, put it in the marketplace and get other operators to rally around that and take that and put on the APIs. The way we built the APIs allows you to take these new services and products, whatever you come up with, define a schema. A schema is a little technical, but think of it just as a way of defining the product or the service. And then basically you can insert that into the APIs, ordering, quote, billing, and it doesn't change. Whether you're talking Ethernet, you're talking IP access, or you're talking edge compute, or you're talking pizzas. It doesn't matter. If you build the schema, put it in the marketplace, and everybody rendezvous around it, then they can get it. I think, and that we are going to be doing that and announcing that and delivering that, shortly, because I believe it's going to be the way we can have fast innovation. So it allows new revenue opportunities, not just thinking about cost optimizations.
Brilliant. Thank you. And let me, John, give the final word to yourself. The thing to get right, yes or yes or yes.
So great comments by all my colleagues here. What I would say is you've heard that this journey we're on is a transformational one for our industry, for our customers, for the ecosystem. And I would say the one thing that I'm hopeful that a year from now, it won't matter to me where you are on the journey for implementing these APIs, just that you're on the bus with us and you're on the journey. So.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And thank you, Devesh, Daniele, Pascal, and John, for a very interesting conversation over the last 45 minutes. I hope it's been of great interest for everybody listening. And I cannot underscore enough the importance of this initiative for the future of the industry. So thank you very much, everybody. And Sophia, back over to you.
Thank you very much for a really fascinating discussion. The session will now be available for on-demand viewing through Swapcard for 30 days post-event. Once again, I would like to thank the speakers we have just heard from. You can join us next for New Frontiers for Intelligent Automation, kindly brought to the programme by Bankai Group. Thank you and see you there.